This week we are going to be doing cartoon self-portraits. What is a self-portrait? Self-portrait is a representation of an artist that is drawn, painted, photographed, or sculpted by that artist. Self-portraits by famous artists. Frida Kahlo was a Mexican painter known for her many portraits, self-portraits, and works inspired by the nature and artifacts of Mexico. Inspired by the country's popular culture, she explored identity, post-colonialism, gender, class, and race in Mexican society when creating artwork. She was alive from 1907 to 1954. She used symbols related to her personal identity and culture in this self-portrait. So you can see that there are a whole bunch of different symbols included here. This is not just a picture of just her face. Her style aligned with surrealism, which is a type of art that is very dreamlike, symbolic, and looks illogical. Her style definitely aligns with that, even though she didn't really claim to be a surrealist. She used oil paints to create this artwork as well. Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh was a Dutch post-impressionist painter who is among the most famous and influential figures in the history of Western art. He was alive from 1853 to 1890. This self-portrait showcases his artistic style as a post-impressionist, so the visible brushstrokes, the vivid colors, thick paint, real-life subject matter, emphasis on distorted form for expressive effect, and the use of unnatural colors. You can see all of that in his self-portrait here. And he used oil paints for this as well. So both of these were created with oil paints, but they are so different because of the artist's personal style. Rembrandt. This is a Dutch artist. He was innovative and a prolific master in different media. That means different materials. He could work with a lot of different things and was just like the best in the business. He is generally considered one of the greatest visual artists in the history of art and the most important in Dutch art history. He was alive from 1606 to 1669. His style is from the Dutch Baroque period, which was known for its richness, its drama, the strong contrast between lightness and darkness in the work. He used oil paints as well. So all three of these artists created their artwork using oil paints, and they are all self-portraits. But notice they are from very different points in history. They were alive during art movements that were different from one another, and what they were seeing in their area, their culture influenced their work. So some of them were obviously going to be a little more realistic, some of them are more stylized. But that's okay, there are so many different ways that you can go about creating a self-portrait. You will be creating a cartoon-style self-portrait. Here are some of the common characteristics of cartoons. They have thick, bold outlines. There are usually a lot of geometric shapes. They have exaggerated features. So, for example, if the nose was really large or the eyes were really large, the hair is really tall, there are things that are very exaggerated. The use of bold colors is very common, but there are exceptions. There are cartoons that look a lot more dull. But idealized is a big part of it. Not very many cartoon characters look like real people. They are somewhat idealized to look a certain way. Kevin McShane. This is a writer, producer, director, and editor of digital content with a background in graphic design, web design, illustration, animation, and photography. He decided to pay tribute to 100 popular cartoons by drawing a self-portrait in the same style. So this one right here is from the Peanuts. He drew himself as one of those characters. Transformers. This one's the Flintstones. Simpsons. You get the point. He took the style of the cartoonist from the cartoon and he drew himself as if he was a part of that cartoon world. And here are all of those. They're very tiny, so you won't be able to see all the details, but he took 100 different styles and created a self-portrait from them. How did he do this? So first he had to analyze the style of each artist. So what characteristics do they use in their artwork? It's good to ask yourself, is the work colorful or dull? Do they outline everything? Are the eyes large or small? Are the characters geometric? What features are exaggerated? And you'll start to pick up on things that that artist does in particular that makes you recognize who it was created by. These are characters from Disney's Inside Out. So notice they all have some things in common with each other so that you can see the same artist created them. However, they are very different as individual characters. For example, over here, she looks disgusted, and you know this because of her facial features, the way her eyes are rolled back, the color that was chosen for her, the way her arms are crossed. She looks very sassy. When you go over here to sadness, she's hunched over, so that body language helps you understand what her character is like. She's blue, and that is associated with sadness. She's wearing an oversized sweater that looks like something you would wear when you're at home and having a bad day. When you go over to Joy, notice her arms are reached out to the sky. She has a giant smile on her face. Her eyes are lit up. She just looks like a happy character. Now you go over here to Anger, and you can see he's got his fists. He has this angry expression on his face. He has flames coming out of his head. When you go over here, you can tell this character is supposed to be really anxious about things. Their arms are showing that they are nervous. Their expression looks shocked. Their eyebrows are all the way up here. So there are things that you can do to show individualism within your characters. However, I can still tell that all of these were created by the same artist. There are some features that are the same throughout. For example, it looks like they have really sparkly hair. Their bodies kind of have more of a soft look to them. They don't look super duper geometric. Their eyes are all large. Their hands kind of have similar shapes. So there are certain things that you can point out which will help you when you are trying to design yourself as a character from something. The Peanuts. So notice they all have similar shapes when it comes to making their faces. They have this nose that's right between the eyes. Some of them have lines next to their eyes that set them apart from each other. Their hair is done in different ways, but it's still within that same style. It has those bold outlines, and for the girls, they put different colors in. For the guys, it's mostly just lines. And that's different for some characters, but for most of them, that's how it worked. Their bodies are kind of all shaped the same. They have this little bit of a cone arch in all of their outfits. Their feet are all similar, but you can tell that they are different people, and there's characteristics. If I was going to make myself a character, I would want to give them long, straight hair, and I would want it to be filled in brown. I would pick out an outfit that's something that I would wear, but I would still want to shape it to look kind of like this artist does. Garfield. So notice all of these characters have very rounded features. Their hands are really rounded, their feet are rounded. They all have these bold lines for the details on them, unless they don't have any at all, that is. They have large eyes. It is very apparent that there are certain things the artist does to make it look unified, but they do have their own individual details which make them stand out from one another. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. So this artist did something interesting. They only outlined certain parts. So notice right here, there's no black outline, but down here, there's one. And every character has certain things that are outlined and certain things that are not. There are a lot of these bold lines that go off of the character themselves. So these lines on Coco's face, they go further than where her face is right here. The lines on his stitches on his face, they go off of him a little bit. So on this, I would maybe pay attention to where you're outlining. They use really bold colors, so you would want to be in a bold color family. It is very simplified. There are not a ton of details in the faces. This is something where you would have to really try to put yourself into it, and it's not going to be one that's as simple as, for example, the Peanuts. But you can tell that this was all made by the same artist, even though they are very different characters. For your project, you are going to choose 2 or more different cartoon styles and create a self-portrait for each. For example, if you did one in the style of the Powerpuff Girls and one in the style of the Flintstones, I challenge you to pick 2 that are very different from one another. That way, you're going to be challenging yourself. Each drawing should fill the entire page, so these aren't going to be on the same page where it's in half. You're going to have one sheet of paper for one and another for the other. Be creative, neat, and complete. You can check our rubric for more details on how you will be graded, and it should resemble you. So if you have certain features that you think should be emphasized in this, for example, this artist focused on her hair. You can see that throughout this, even if it changed to be another color, that hair is going to be an identifiable feature of them that will make this self-portrait really look like them, even if it's taking on that style. This might be their favorite color that they included for the outfit, their eye color throughout. I mean, it changes for some of these more magical characters. but you want to make sure that this looks like you. By Sunday at midnight, I am expecting you to have one of your 2 characters completed and submitted. You'll work on one for this week, and then you'll do your second character next week. You can do some research by going onto Google and typing in cartoon artists or cartoon characters and find a style that you really like and would like to try. But make sure that the 2 are very different.